Hello. Tonight we're going to read Jack Knight's Brave Flight, How One Gutsy Pilot Saved the U.S. Airmail Service. North Platte, Nebraska, February 22nd, 1921, 10:44 p.m. Jack Knight adjusts his goggles, eases the control stick forward, and rumbles down the runway. Hundreds of people crowd the airstrip, waiting in the wintry chill for "There, liftoff!" Cheers ring out, and all eyes watch the plywood-covered de Havilland until it disappears into the night. Is Jack transporting a famous passenger? Is he ferrying medicine to save a sick child? Is his plane filled with precious jewels or priceless artifacts? Nope. So what's strapped into the open cockpit ahead of him? 6 sacks of mail. Why then is the crowd so excited? Because this is no ordinary mail flight. This is an all-day, all-night, coast-to-coast race to save America's struggling airmail service. Or not. The wind is bitterly cold, and Jack has a hard time getting comfortable in the boxy seat. It doesn't help that he's still achy and stiff from last week's crash, when his engine quit and sent him plowing into a snowy mountainside. With every breath, he feels the weight of the plaster holding his broken nose in place. Jack knows he was lucky to survive that crash. 17 other pilots have died. Coast to coast, airmail relay across America. Those crashes are why America's lawmakers want to end airmail. Flying is too dangerous, they say, and replacing planes costs too much money. Moving mail by train is safer and cheaper. But airmail officials and pilots know planes can move mail faster than trains. Today and tonight will prove it. Pilots are taking turns short-hopping 4 planes across the country, 2 flying east and 2 flying west. At least one must get through, or airmail is doomed. Flying the mail from Omaha to North Platte to Cheyenne, Wyoming, is Jack's regular job. He flew the route earlier today, not knowing he'd been chosen to take part in this night flight. Now he's pooped. Oh well, he only has to fly the 248 miles back to Omaha. As the plane drones through the night, Jack yawns and searches for landmarks below. But nothing looks the same in the dark. Signal fires are supposed to guide him, but it's awfully late. What if the fire tenders have given up and gone to bed? No, there's one. Burning oil drums and torches lead Jack across Nebraska's black prairie, past Lexington, Kearney, and Grand Island. At last he spots a cluster of lights. Omaha! As proud as he is to have taken part in this relay, he's looking forward to turning the plane over to the next pilot. 2,000 people cheer as Jack touches down at 1:10 a.m. He drops from the cockpit, bone-tired and shivering, and is greeted with bad news. The other eastbound plane crashed in Nevada. Its pilot is dead. Another plane took its place in the relay, but now its pilot is too exhausted to continue. Worse, a blizzard has stranded the 2 westbound planes in Chicago. Oh, and the pilot traveling to Omaha to replace Jack? He can't get there either. In this historic race across America, Jack Knight is the relay's only hope. You gave it your best shot, people say. Call it a night. Get some sleep. Instead, Jack studies a road map. He wants to get a feel for the route since he's never flown over Iowa and Illinois before. Chicago is more than 450 miles away, and at some point he's going to collide with that blizzard. Recalling how cold the trip has already been, he gulps hot coffee. and stuffs newspapers inside his leather suit for extra protection. "Leave the lights on for an hour," he tells the airfield manager. "If I get lost, I'll sure as heck come back." At 2 a.m., Jack takes off, staying low enough to follow the barely visible tracks of the Rock Island line. Constantly, he peers ahead for signal fires. Jack has been in the air for about an hour when he sees lights twinkling on the horizon. Is that Des Moines? Yes, there's the Capitol Dome. Soon he spots the airfield. Good thing, because he's almost out of fuel. He begins to circle, and his heart sinks. There's snow on the runway, and without knowing its depth, he'd be crazy to land. All Jack can do is switch to his auxiliary tank and continue eastward. Iowa City should be less than an hour away. He'll have to refuel there. The ground crew waiting to help Jack at the Iowa City airfield receives a telephone call from someone in Omaha telling them the relay has failed. They go home to bed. It begins to snow. The wind shifts, slowing the plane to 85 miles per hour. It's a rough ride. Every jolt of the bucking plane is like a punch to Jack's aching nose. He checks his compass often as the little plane bounces through the blizzard. Despite the cold, the engine's rhythmic throb makes Jack drowsy. His thinking grows fuzzy. No! He grips the control stick with his knees and slaps his face. He leans into the icy wind and lets it scour his cheeks until the danger of falling asleep has passed. Only a night watchman remains at the Iowa City airfield to answer a second call, reporting that the earlier message was a mistake. Jack Knight is on his way. Jack wipes slush from his goggles. He peers ahead, but can no longer see the horizon through the swirling snow. His compass tells him he's flying east, but where's Iowa City? Will he find it before the plane runs out of fuel and crashes? The temperature drops to minus 12 degrees Fahrenheit. The shivering watchman stands outside a shack near the runway, listening for Jack's motor. He runs inside to warm up. Out, in, out. Finally, a faint buzz. The plane! By the time he rushes to place 2 flares in the center of the runway, Jack is zooming in. While the plane is being refueled, its engine running, Jack eats a ham sandwich and tries to warm up. Too soon, he's crawling back into the cockpit and taking off. He runs into fog over the Mississippi River and climbs to 5,000 feet before finding clear air. Clear, frigid air. Stinging his face, stiffening his fingers, numbing his toes. As dawn brightens the sky, the weary pilot sees the gray smoke of Chicago factories. It was the finest sight, he later said, I had ever beheld. When the plane landed at Checkerboard Field, people rushed to congratulate Jack Knight. Too bad he couldn't stand to greet them. His flight suit had frozen to the seat. Jack was cut from his flight suit, and his mail sacks were transferred to another plane. One pilot flew them to Cleveland, Ohio, and from there another finished the run into Long Island. Total time for the 2,629-mile transcontinental air relay? 33 hours and 20 minutes. They'd beaten the old plane train record by nearly 39 hours. Suddenly, everybody was excited about airmail service. Within a few days, Congress voted 2-1 to give the service the money they needed to continue operating. The U.S. airmail service was saved, thanks to 14 determined men who risked their lives to make it happen, especially one cold and exhausted hero who refused to give up. The end. I hope y'all enjoyed. The special shout out to Charles and William. I love y'all. Good night.